My name is McKenna Blanthorne. In today's video, we're going to learn how to cut vinyl and paper, and also a few basic tools in Silhouette Studio. So go ahead and grab your supplies, get ready, and let's craft along together. Alright, so the first thing we need to do, guys, is we need to head over to the page setup, and this window automatically opens when you open Silhouette Studio. If it isn't open for some reason and it looks like this and you can't find it, all you need to do is click this little page at the very top right of the screen. So we are using the Cameo for today, which means that we're using all the defaults that it opens up to, but if you're using the Portrait or the Cameo Pro, this section is going to be applicable to you. So what you'll do is you'll just go number 1 first. You select the machine that you're using. We're using the Cameo, but you can select your other machines. Then you'll select the feed type. Most of us are just going to be using the auto manual feed type. If you're using the new sheet feeder, that's applicable to you, but we're not using that today. And then you're going to select your cutting mat that you're using. Once again, we're using the Cameo, which is 12 by 12. If you select the Cameo Plus or the Cameo Pro up here at the top, you'll see the options for those mats to show up here. But we didn't select those machines, so we are just using the Cameo 12 by 12 mat. And then our media size, at least for the first part of our project, is 12 by 12 paper. So we don't need to change any of this. If you're using 8.5 by 11 paper, you can either select letter paper, or if you're using a scrap of paper or something like that, maybe you just have like a 4-inch piece of paper that's like 4 by 4. You can just select the width and the height, and you can change those to reflect the size of your media. I just zoomed in, so I just wanted to zoom out to show you. But like I said, we're just using the auto 12 by 12. And then that is all we need to do to set up our window. Just make sure, for this one it's a square, so it doesn't matter as much to make it landscape or portrait, but you can change that right here. You can also change the media color if you want to. I like to just always keep mine white, just as a blank slate. And then also just do the show cut border, which is this red line around the outside, and that's as close as you can cut to the edge. So once we have all of that showing up, we're good to move on to the next step, which is creating our art boards that we're going to use to kind of make a visual for our project. So we know that we're making an 11 by 17 sign. Obviously, our cutting mat is only 12 by 12. So just to be able to set it out and look at everything at the correct size, I'm going to show you to use the drawing tool, which is this rectangle over here. And you're just going to hover over that, and then a few different shapes will show up. We're just using our actual rectangle tool. And then I like to just draw a small rectangle. And when you do that, you will notice that these little width and height measurements will pop up above. And we just need to make this 11 by 17, which is the size of our project. So go ahead and unclick this little lock right here so that it's unlocked. That just means that it's not going to keep this aspect ratio. And then we're just going to make it 17 inches wide and 11 inches tall. And then we can lock that because we don't want that to change now. To zoom in and out of your workspace, you can use these little magnifying glasses up here. So I just did that so we could see it a little bit more. And we're just going to put this to the side as our little kind of guide for our project that we're making today. So now it's time to go to our library and pull in the different files that we're going to be using for this project. And you guys can use whatever files you want. We are using the jungle set of files that come with the machine. So now we need to pull our designs. And where we're going to do that is our library. You can navigate up here to the upper right-hand corner, and you can see 4 options, and one of them is library. So we're just going to click the library, and all of these files that pop up are the files that were downloaded with your machine. And so there's a whole lot of different options and fun things that you can use no matter what kind of party you're doing. We're doing a jungle party today, but I love these sports balls. There's just a couple generic birthday designs, and there's just a lot of great options for us. Today, like I said, we're going to be using the jungle pieces. and you can see one here, but it is kind of hard to see all of them, and so I want to kind of just find my jungle pieces or designs. So I'm going to come up to the search bar up here and just type jungle, and then my designs that I'm using today are going to pop up. So if you kind of keyword search, you can find the designs that you're looking for. So we need to open the designs that we're going to be using today, and for this project I'm going to use the Go Wild, I'm going to use our 2 sets of leaves, and then I'm going to use our Jungle Party flowers. And the way that we open these designs in this project is we just hover over the design and then we double click it. It will open in a different window, so I'm going to go back to the library and just open all of them. And you can see that this is our untitled one, is our design that we're making right now. And then these are opening in their own windows. So I'm just going to open the other leaves. And then lastly, I'm going to open the flowers. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put these into our project. So I'm just going to select these flowers. And the way that I'm going to select all of them at one time is I'm going to draw a rectangle over the top with my mouse, and then I'm going to right click and do group, and this will make it so all of the flowers move in one group. If you don't know how to do that, or if that seems a little bit overwhelming, you can just copy and paste each flower into the document as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and right click again and click copy, and then we can close this this set because we don't need it anymore. And then we're going to right click in our document and select paste. And then I'm just going to drag these flowers over for a second. Obviously right now they're a little bit on the large side. We're going to go back to the Go Wild and do the same thing, just draw that rectangle over all of the pieces, and then right click, select copy, or sorry, we need to group that first, don't we? Right click and select group, and then right click and select copy, close that file, we don't need to save it right now, and then right click and paste, and then we're just going to repeat that step 2 more times with our leaves. One thing that I like about this project is that it's a lot of repetition, which actually teaches us and helps us learn how to use these tools, because we're kind of doing the same thing a couple different times, and that just helps us become familiar with the different tools that we're using. Oh, selected paste, not copy. All right, so now that we have all of our tools, or all of our designs in this project, we're going to go ahead and arrange them on our 11 by 17 artboard. And the thing that I want to show you guys first is how to make this white, just so we can see it a little bit better. So this is one of our tools that we're going to learn how to use in this project. And I have my rectangle selected. To select something, all you need to do is click on it with this tool selected, which is the top left tool. So now we just need to go over here to this little art palette, which is called the Fill panel, and I'm just going to click that to open it, and you can use this to fill your different designs with different colors. I just want to make this easier for us to see everything, so I'm just going to make this white. And you can use these colors that are the default colors, but you can also pick any color you can imagine down here with the custom color option. So I just wanted to show you that tool real quick, which is the Fill panel tool. So now we are going to arrange our different pieces onto this little artboard that we created. The first thing that I want to size and do is the Go Wild, because that's going to be in the middle of my sign. And we're going to use vinyl to create these letters right here. And this actually looks like a pretty good default size for this project, because I'm going to put leaves and flowers around it. So I don't want to, make it extra large. And I don't want to make it super large, so I'm just actually going to leave this one at the default size. So Go Wild, we're just going to put right around the middle of our project. And now I'm going to use the select tool and some ungrouping to put different leaves and flowers around the words. So I'm going to go ahead and begin by ungrouping all of my leaves and flowers. So I'm just going to select each group and just ungroup them. We'll pull the flowers down here so we can see them a little bit better. So now each piece can be moved and pulled and placed individually instead of as a whole group, because I want to kind of spread out these leaves and use them in different places. So we are going to kind of make little clusters of leaves and flowers to go in each corner for this project, as you guys saw at the beginning. And you guys do not have to do it the exact same way that I'm going to do it. I made the first project, the example project that we saw, but this one might be a little bit different. So just kind of use your best judgment. If it seems overwhelming to create your own, you can follow mine exactly. But I just want you guys to make this however you want. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to place my dark green leaves, and these actually seem a little bit large to me. So I want to make them a little bit smaller. And the way that you make things smaller in Silhouette Studio is you just select it and then you just drag the corners, and it will keep the same aspect ratio. It won't stretch them, it won't make them taller or wider. It'll just keep that same ratio for you. So then something you can do also is you can use this little green circle at the top. If you hover over it, you can turn your leaves also, or if you're not using leaves, your object. So I'm going to place this one in the top left-hand corner right here. And it is okay if it's a little bit bigger than our actual rectangle, because it's paper. These leaves and flowers are going to be paper. So if it overlays the frame a little bit, if it overlays the letters, that's totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn this. I like this size, so I'm just going to leave that one right there. And then I'm going to add a green leaf to this, a light green leaf to this one too. And I actually kind of like these ones to be a little bit on the smaller side. So as you can see, I pulled this light green leaf up to the corner, and it is behind our dark green leaf. And since it's a little bit thinner and more dainty, I'd actually like this leaf to be in front. So the way that we move it to the front is we select the leaf, and it's already selected. If you haven't already selected it, just click it to select it. And then we're going to navigate up here to these little boxes right here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to click Bring to Front, and it will bring that piece to the front of our designs. No matter how many layers you have, it'll bring it to the front. So this one is still a little bit on the large side, so I'm just going to go ahead and shrink it down a little bit, maybe pull it out a tiny bit. And then I like to hide, kind of like line up my stems of my leaves to the bottom of the big leaf. And then let's go ahead and add a flower to this one too. Let's just use the smallest flower, and we need to bring this one all the way to the front. So we're just going to do the same thing. It's behind, and I'm just going to come up here to these little squares. I'm just going to select Bring to Front, and then I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Perfect. So there's our first leaf cluster. And we're just going to repeat kind of the same process, but using our different designs for the rest of them. So I'm just going to maybe take this leaf, rotate it a little bit by using that little green handle, and then I'm just going to drag it a little bit smaller and move it around until I like the place that it is. And remember, like I told you guys, if this seems like it's a little bit fast for you, you can always pause this video, you can rewatch this video, you can repeat any steps over and over again to get the hang of it, but just go ahead and go slow. All right, I think for right here, I actually liked this one in front more. So I think I'm not going to put a flower in this corner. put this leaf in this corner, and you can totally let your leaf overlap your lettering too. I always think that's really fun. It just adds a little bit of dimension to your project. I'm actually going to turn this one a little bit this way. And like I said, this is just a lot of repetition in our projects. Awesome. Let's go ahead and use the orange flower right here. So I'm just going to select it and make it quite a bit smaller. And then I'm going to bring it to the front by selecting this button. Beautiful. And as I said, you can overlap it to the design as well. This will be vinyl flat against the glass, and these pieces are going to be 3D paper, so it doesn't really matter that it overlaps. It just adds a little bit of contrast and an interesting element. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. That's something that I love about Silhouette Studio, is using all of these tools and techniques. You can totally make something however you want to make it. And I think that's one of the best things about having a Silhouette machine. All right. Perfect, we're just about done. Awesome. Okay, I love this digital preview of our project. Now that we have this digital preview created, the first thing that we need to do is we just need to group these individual clusters that we created of our designs. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to select one design and one leaf, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and then select the other one. Just click right on top of it and then right click and group that together. So it's the opposite of what we did when we brought these designs in. When we had to ungroup all the pieces, we're just reversing it and grouping everything. So I'm just going to click to select, hold down Shift, click the other leaf and the other leaf, right click and then group. We're just going to repeat that step with the other clusters. I actually don't think, yeah, I did not grab the flower on that one. That was my bad. So I'm just going to select and then grab the flower and group. And then do it one more time up here. Our Go Wild was already all grouped together, so we don't need to change any of that. And then the last thing that we need to do is group this design all together. So I'm going to do that by clicking each of my different pieces. And we will also grab the preview that we made, and we're just going to group that. As I'm making projects, I love having the digital preview just like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this entire project because we're going to break it apart now to cut our different colors. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this project that's all grouped together. And then I'm going to click somewhere else in my studio, and then I'm going to right click again and then select paste. And then we have two different colors, or sorry, two different groups. So we can take one of the groups apart, but we can also keep this to see how we need to assemble everything when we have all of our pieces cut out. So now that we grouped this all together, this first one, we're going to go ahead and ungroup it. So I'm just going to select ungroup, and then we can actually drag a rectangle over everything. We don't want to ungroup the Go Wild though, so I deselected that. I just held down Shift and then clicked that so it wasn't selected. And then I'm going to right click and do ungroup. And now we can move all of our pieces individually. So we are going to cut these with our different pieces of cardstock that we have. So to start out, we're going to cut the dark green, let's say. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and drag these light or dark green pieces onto my artboard, and you can arrange them however you want. You don't have to keep them at the same angle or anything because they're just going to be separate pieces. So you can arrange them so they will cut on your paper to kind of give you the most space. This one looks like it actually needs to be ungrouped one more time. So I'm going to drag these over, and then this one is ready to cut now. And I'm going to show you how to set everything up to send this to cut. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and turn on our machine and prepare to start cutting our pieces. So the way that we need to turn on this machine is after you've connected your power cord to a power source, the power button is on the right side, and you're just going to press it, and this lighted panel will come on, and then we're going to go ahead and open the machine by just pulling it out and then pushing it back. So we're going to take our blade, which has a number 1 on it, which means that it goes in the carriage 1. And it's numbered, as you can see. There's a 1 there, and there's a 1 here on your blade. And this blade will come with the purchase of your machine. So we're going to take the blade and insert it into the slot. And then to lock it into place, hold the blade down with your finger firmly, and then pull up that tab a tiny, tiny bit and push in. And you'll feel it kind of do like a double click, and you'll know that that's how it's in place and down all of the way. You'll release your hand and it'll pop up slightly, and you'll know that the blade is inserted correctly. Now we're just going to prepare the mat to start cutting. So we just need to peel off this blue cover that comes with the mat. Make sure you keep this cover in a safe place and that you cover your mat every time you're done using it for storage so it doesn't get hair and dust and particles on it, so it stays sticky extra long. And now we're just going to go ahead and load our sheet of paper. We're cutting our green piece first, our dark green. So I'm just going to take my paper and I'm going to line it up with the corners of the mat. I always line it up with the top corners and then kind of push it down and smooth it out after the fact. And now we're just going to load our machine. So the way that we do this is we're simply going to click the upward arrow. And once it starts blinking, it means that the sensor, which is right here, is starting to read for material that is placed on top of the sensor. So all we need to do is take this edge of the mat and line it up with this gray line and arrow, and then you need to hold it there for a few seconds while it reads the material, and then it will load perfectly for you. So that's all you need to do to load the mat into your machine, and now we're ready to hop into the software to show you how to send that to cut. Alright, so when you open the send panel, you'll see that all of our designs have a red outline around them. If they don't have a red outline and they're showing up like this, it's just defaulted to a no cut. So all you need to do is click that piece and then just click cut over here and they'll show up, so they're all going to cut. And then we just need to select our material, and we are using cardstock textured heavy. If you're using a different material, you just click that little drop down, and there's hundreds of materials that are already tested and defaulted into the software that you can select. We are just doing an auto cut, and then we are using the auto blade, which is automatically detected by the Cameo 4, the Portrait 3, the Cameo Pro, and the Cameo Plus, and any later models as well. So we're going to go ahead and just use the default settings. It is a blade depth of 5, a force of 30, and a speed of 4. So we're not going to change anything. And we've already loaded our media. So now all we need to do is click send down here at the bottom. All right, so now that our machine has kind of rolled our mat back out to us, it means that it's done cutting. You can see our outlines, but let's just go ahead and make sure that it cut before we unload it, because if it didn't cut, you can just send it for another pass and it will line everything up in the exact same place. So to check it, I just like to kind of try and peel back a piece. It cut perfectly. It's a nice sharp cut. So that just means that we're good and that we can unload it. To unload the mat, we just come over to the downward arrow and we are going to unload it, and it just spits out the mat. And now we can slowly peel our pieces off. And actually, in order to peel off paper when I'm using a brand new mat, I like to flip it over so that the pieces don't curl. And then I'm going to peel the mat from the paper instead of peeling the pieces from the mat. And we're just going to go slow. Some of your pieces might stick to the mat, but I'll show you how to take those off as well. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and these just stuck a little bit. They're cut fine. They just got stuck when we were peeling. So we're going to go ahead and save this piece of paper in a box so we can use it for another project. And then just put these pieces to the side, and then just flip over your mat again and slowly peel these pieces off. And when you have a new mat, they are very sticky. So just make sure that you go really slowly to peel it off. These are our little excess pieces, and you just need to take those off of your mat. I'm just using this silhouette accessory that we have called the spatula tool, but you can use your fingers or anything that you have and to just slide these little pieces off. Just makes it a little bit easier to pick them up and move them. And like I said, the mat is sticky, so. All right. Now that we have our dark green pieces cut, we're just going to repeat the whole process with all of our other colors of cardstock. So now that we moved our light green pieces onto our mat, we're back in the send panel. We're using the exact same paper, so we don't need to change any of our settings. All we need to do after we load our mat is just come down here and click send. All right, now that our machine finished cutting, we're just going to go ahead and make sure this piece cut correctly by slightly lifting up one of the pieces, and it did. And then we're going to press the downward arrow to unload the mat. Next, we're going to flip over our mat and then slowly peel back our paper. Now that we have cut all of our leaves, let's go ahead and cut our flowers. Let's start with the white flowers. Just going to go ahead and line it up with the corners and then load it the same way by clicking the upward arrow, and once it's blinking, lining the side of our mat up with the gray arrows. Now that we're back in our Silhouette software, we have placed the white flowers onto our mat. Like I said, we're not going to change any of our settings up here. We're just going to come down to the bottom and press send. Great, let's go ahead and unload these flowers. Let's check that they cut through. They did. We're just going to press the downward arrow to unload the mat, and then flip it over and just repeat what we've already done. This is definitely a big piece of paper that we can use for future projects. So let's go ahead and save that. And then just flip over the mat and slowly remove these little white flowers. All right, let's cut our orange flowers next. Going to click the upward arrow once it starts blinking, line the edge of your mat up with the arrows, and then just wait a second until it pulls it in. All right, now we're back in the software. We have our orange flowers loaded onto our mat. We aren't going to change any of our settings, and we're going to come down and just press the send button. Go ahead and check that these cut. Perfect. We're going to unload by pressing the downward arrow. Then we're going to flip over the mat. Then we just have one more color to cut before we cut our vinyl. Load our last yellow onto the mat. Line the edge of the mat up with the press the load button and let it start blinking, and then line the edge of your mat up with the gray arrows. Okay. All right, we're going to move our yellow pieces onto our mat, and then we're going to go to the send panel and click send. All right, so these ones are under the roller, so I can't really pull them up. But since all of our other pieces cut great also, I'm just going to assume that they cut good. So I'm just going to go ahead and unload them. and then peel them off slowly. When the pieces are small, you can kind of hold it down with your finger to avoid curling. And we're just going to pull off this yellow piece. And that is all of the pieces that we need to cut with our mat. So what I'm gonna do that I mentioned at the start, I'm just gonna take my mat cover and shiny side down, I'm just going to line it up with my sticky part of my mat. And this is the perfect way to keep your mat from getting just dirty and less sticky. So we're just gonna go ahead and save our mat, push our paper pieces to the side as we prepare to cut our vinyl. Like I said, I'm gonna be using matte vinyl for this project, but you can use any kind of vinyl that you would like. I'm using black, but you could also use any color. So the vinyl comes packaged like this, so I'm just going to go ahead and open the vinyl by just taking some scissors and cutting this little piece of tape right here. And then there's another piece of tape that's just holding the vinyl roll closed that we can take off. And your vinyl may be packaged a little bit differently, but in the end, just open up your vinyl. And now we need to go into our software to set up the differences before we load this into the machine. All right, so let's move our yellow flowers off the screen. All of our paper pieces are over here on the side, and we don't need them anymore for right now. What we're going to do now is we're going to change the cutting mat to none. And that will just allow us to load this vinyl into the machine and cut without using a mat. So that sensor for loading won't be looking for the mat. It'll just be looking for vinyl. So now we just need to go ahead and load this Go Wild onto the mat. And we're just going to leave our cutting area the same since we aren't using something that's extra long. And then we're just going to go into the send panel. And this is where we do need to alter a couple more things. So we are obviously not using cardstock for this part of the project. So I'm just going to click the material and then type vinyl. And there's a whole lot of types of vinyl that pop up, but like I said, I'm using matte vinyl. And we have our red outline around everything. I'm just going to keep this all the same, and then I'm just going to demonstrate how to load the vinyl before I click send. So something about the Cameo 4 that's really amazing is it has a built-in roll feeder, and that's this little drawer down here. So you're just going to gently tug this little drawer out, and everything clicks into place as you pull it. We're going to open this and then open these little tabs. You can use a 9-inch roll of vinyl or a 12-inch roll of vinyl. We're using a 12-inch roll of vinyl. So all we need to do is pop the two ends of the vinyl between these two bars and just kind of gently tug that out to do so. And then take your vinyl and feed it through this piece that has a slit. And now we're going to load it. We actually need to pull this little tab down, and then holding this little lock button down, we're going to slide inward till it clicks into the inside bar. And this is going to be in line with this arrow right here. And then we're going to put our bar back down and press the upward arrow, and then pull this in, and then hold it with all of our fingers so it loads well. Now we're back in our send panel, so we have all of our settings created. So all we need to do now is come down and click send. we just our machine just finished cutting the vinyl, so we're going to go ahead and check the cut to make sure that it worked well. I'm just going to go to one of the inside pieces of a letter and go ahead and pull it out. It came out perfectly, so that means that our cut worked well, and we can go ahead and remove the roll of vinyl from the machine. All right, now we're going to go ahead and use the cross cutter element of the Cameo 4. So we're going to show you that we can feed the material through the back of the machine and use a cutter along the back to create a straight line across our material. To feed the material through the machine, we're going to press the downward arrow on the upper keypad. You will see that it's feeding through the back right here, and then we need to go a little bit further to get our whole design. And if you feed it too far, like I did actually, because our design is ending right there, you can use the upward arrow to feed it back. All right, now in order to use the cross cutter, we're just going to take these two tabs on the side and put them down, and then we're going to take the cutter, which is this right here, and we're just going to slide it across. Once you're done using the cutter and your material is cut, you're just going to go ahead and pop those tabs back up. And make sure the cross cutter is slid all the way to one side. All right, now we're just going to go ahead and unload our vinyl and stow our roll feeder. So we are going to press the downward arrow to unload the vinyl. It will let it out quickly, and then I'm just going to gently pull this bar and pull my vinyl out. Roll it up, and then press these little tabs down and simply close the drawer. At this point, we're actually done cutting with our Cameo for this project, so I'm just going to turn it off and then close it as well. All right, to begin assembling our project, we're first going to weed our vinyl piece. Weeding is removing the pieces that we don't want of our design. I'm going to do this by using the silhouette accessory called the hook tool. What we're going to do is use the hook tool to simply take away the inside pieces of our letters and any other parts of our design that we don't need. I'm starting out with all of the centers of the letters. And I know that it can be kind of hard to see, but you'll be able to see it much better when we pull the large piece away. Right, to do the large piece, I'm just going to start in one corner and pull it up a little bit. And then very slowly peel away. And our letters, our cut is perfect, so our letters just come out really, really nicely. This is why I recommend checking to make sure that it cut before you unload it, because if it sticks at all, you can do another pass to make sure that it just comes off really, really nicely. Great, so here is our piece of vinyl that we're going to use for our project. Now we get to assemble our flowers and leaves. Since this is flat on the frame, I'm going to add a little bit of dimension with our flowers. This is an optional step, but it's pretty easy to do, and it adds a lot of dimension and just interest to your project. So to do this, I'm going to use the hook tool, just the end of the hook tool, but you can also just use a pen or whatever you have on hand. So I'm just going to kind of take the end and just kind of roll the ends of my flowers against the hook tool. And there's a whole lot of different techniques on how you can do this that you can find online. There are so many people out there that are amazing at making paper flowers. And for these little tiny, tiny pieces, I'm just kind of going to let it sit against my thumb and with my nail just press up the pieces so they're a little bit curved. And we are just going to kind of add a little bit of dimension to all of these pieces. So this part of the project takes a little bit of time, And like I said, it is optional, but if you want to do it, you can just pop on some music or listen to a podcast, and it'll be over before you know it. These pieces that just have the spiky long pieces, I'm just going to go ahead and pop those spikes up a little bit. All right, and then the leaves, all of these leaves are different, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can just kind of curl the edges like we did with our flowers. That's a great option. That's just really easy. It just adds a slight bend and curl upward. The ones that are a little bit bigger, this leaf is bigger than that one, you can take your end of your tool or pen and you can just press it in the middle and then press up on the sides, and it will give kind of a sideways curl, more like a real leaf, I would say. It kind of bends up at the ends. But this part of the project is up to you, and you just need to use your own creativity. These are just a few examples of ways that you can do it. And you can see how those differ a little bit. This one, I'm just going to roll the ends. And you can also roll them at the same time if you have a long piece. Just kind of roll them around the side. It saves a little bit of time. And then long ones like this, I actually just like to take it and just like roll it. So it just curves outward a little bit. It's kind of like curling ribbon if you've ever done that. These ones I just like to press all of them against the side to give them a little bit of shape, but not a lot, because Monstera leaves are flat for the most part anyway. This one's a little bit on the bigger side, so I'm just going to kind of curl these. You don't want to use this method on the more delicate ones. All right, so now that we have all of our leaves, we are going to assemble our flowers and then assemble our little clusters that we made. I'm going to be doing this assembly with a hot glue gun. This is just a regular hot glue gun. I plugged it in a little bit ago, so it's ready to go. And I'm actually going to pull up my screen to reference. All right, so let's go ahead and start with this flower. Referencing our screen, this is the flower that's in the top right-hand corner on mine. So I'm going to go ahead and take this little rounded flower, and then it has this yellow piece that I'm going to grab and pull, and then it also has the small orange piece in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and put these together with hot glue. So I'm just going to take my hot glue gun, add a tiny bit of glue into the middle All right, so now that we put our little dab of hot glue in the middle, be careful not to burn yourself, and just place that yellow flower. You can see that it just has, you know, like a slight little bit of dimension that adds just a little bit of a pop. And then we're going to add a tiny, tiny dot of hot glue inside of this flower for our orange piece. And also, if you don't want to burn your fingers, you can always use a pen or the hook tool to just press those down in the middle. Great, so there's our first flower assembled. I'm just going to put it to the side. Next, let's do this large white flower, and this is my top left flower in my design, and it just has this yellow piece in the middle. I'm just going to go ahead and press this. Or wait, I'm sorry, it actually has this orange piece. That's why you have to pull up the reference to make sure, because it's easy to get all of the pieces confused. Great, and that's all we need to do for this piece. And then this orange flower has the two that are left. And like I said, you could make these flowers however you want. You could use different flowers if you wanted to as well. Great, so we have our flowers all created over here. Now we're just going to create our leaf clusters with the flowers. Okay, so I'm still referencing the screen, and let's start with the lower left-hand corner. So the lower left-hand corner uses this leaf, and then it uses this leaf, and then our orange flower. So I'm just going to kind of lay it out like that so we can see it. And then the green leaf I have on the bottom, the dark green. So I'm just going to put a little dab of glue right there. And kind of be strategic about your glue and cover it up. And then we're just going to put another piece of glue, or another dab of glue, in the same spot on top. And we have our first cluster created. It's kind of fun to see the digital preview and then the real preview. And we're just going to go ahead and lay this kind of in our lower left corner. All right, now let's go ahead and do the top left cluster. So we are using this big leaf, and then we are using our white flower with the orange center and this leaf as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and I kind of want this one to be poking out a little bit, just right behind. So I'm going to go maybe right here. And just let that glue down right there. And also I'm just going to put some glue right here behind this leaf. And we're going to take our white flower and just put it right there. Oh, and I actually can just pop that glue right here. And then let's put this one just kind of up here so we know that it goes in the upper left corner. Let's do the lower right corner, and this one doesn't have a flower. It just has this light green leaf and this dark green leaf. And this one actually has the dark green on top. So I'm just going to put some glue on my light green leaf. Place that there, and then we're just going to use our 3 remaining leaves. And I actually curled this the opposite way of how it's laid out, so I'm just going to go ahead and curl it backwards. And then we have this leaf just kind of laying on top of it. As you can see, I kind of stemmed everything from the centers since they're going around the words. Then we're just going to place a little tiny bit more glue for our last flower. Great. So this is how our project is going to be laid out with our words in the middle. So now what we're going to do, since we want the flowers and the leaves to sit on top of the words, is we're going to use transfer tape to adhere our vinyl words to our frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and scoot our leaves to the side. And then we are going to pull our frame into view a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to use transfer tape. Transfer tape is a clear tape that's not super sticky, but sticky enough to pick up vinyl and to move it to hard surfaces. So this is a new roll of transfer tape, so I'm just going to peel off some of the tape like I did with the vinyl. And then I'm going to bring in my design, and as you can see, it has these little squares, which are each 1 inch. So this can help you to cut a straight piece, and if you know how big your design is from the start, you can just cut it to that size, but I'm just going to lay this on top of my design, and I'm going to cut to right here just so I have a little bit of extra room. So I'm going to cut along this line with some scissors. And it went pretty much the whole way across, so I'm just going to cut all the way across. And something I love about transfer tape is it's actually reusable. You can just keep the backing and then use it over and over again. So to use this transfer tape, we have our design right here. We're just going to peel back a corner of the paper, and it is sticky, so be careful of that. Hold it with both hands. It's a little bit tricky when your design is large, but then we're just going to kind of push down in the middle, let it get down in the middle and stick to the middle pieces, and then push it over one side and push it over the other side. I'm going to use the silhouette scraper tool that looks like this. It's just another accessory to go ahead and get out any air bubbles and just push the transfer tape onto the vinyl. And then I'm going to flip over my sheet and peel the vinyl backing away from the transfer tape. If it doesn't seem like it's sticking well, you can always just push it down on this side too. Just go slowly with this part. The slower you go, the easier it is to do. Oh, and the exclamation point. Okay. So now that we have our vinyl on this transfer tape, I'm going to pull our frame into view, and we want to center these words in the middle of our frame. So I like to hover over the frame just to kind of get a good idea of where I want to place it, and then I like to kind of pull up my edges so the middle sticks down first to avoid any bubbles. So I'm just going to lightly press down and then let the rest of it fall. And then taking this silhouette tool once again, I'm just going to go over to stick the vinyl to the glass. This is the easiest part of the whole project. You just slowly peel the transfer tape away. and the vinyl sticks. And like I said, this transfer tape is reusable, so just go ahead and keep the backing and then place it on your backing. You don't even have to place it perfectly, but just save that. All right, so lastly, we're almost done with our project. We're just gonna go ahead and add our flower and leaf clusters with the hot glue gun around the words. And like I said, it's okay if they overlap a little bit. It's okay if they overlap the frame. That just adds more dimension and interest to your project. So I'm referencing again and my screen, and I'm just gonna go ahead and lay these out here. See, it overlaps the frame a little bit, but I actually love how that looks. Here and down here. All right, so now we're just going to use the hot glue gun to just attach it. So I like to just put some hot glue on the glass and then just push it down so it adheres nicely. You can glue it in more than one place if you want to, especially the top pieces. If they're a little bit heavy, it's a good idea to add like another dot of glue up here, just so they don't fall down and cover up the words. Just go right here for these ones. This one's pretty small, so we can just do one dab of glue. Let's actually do one for this leaf. And this is all just up to you. There's no right or wrong way to do this part of the project especially. Then I'm just going to add a little dot down here for this leaf. All right. Lastly, we're just going to go ahead and take any of the strands of hot glue off. And this is the final project. I love how it turned out. If you got all the way through, you learned so much in this video. You learned how to use so many silhouette tools, and you can learn more in the rest of the videos for this project. But thanks so much for joining us, guys.